Hello, my name is Stephanie Stone. I'm Chief Deputy Director for Los Angeles County's Department of Military and Veteran Affairs and a Navy veteran. I'll be acting as your MC today for Representative Ted Lieu's conversation with military, veteran, and Gold Star families, a virtual event. Congressman Ted Lieu has organized this special event using a format that was originally created by author Sebastian Junger. This is a community forum aimed at establishing a greater understanding of our local military, veteran, and Gold Star families. Military families will share an experience that depicts their joys and sacrifices. Non-military viewers are invited to tune in, listen, and learn. We will have 8 families telling their stories today: an Air Force, Space Force, Marines, Navy, Army, and Coast Guard are all represented. I am proud that I was able to serve my country in the United States Navy as a Navy hospital corpsman, and I have been part of a military family. I was going to say Navy. In fact, my family has served in all the wars here in this nation. On my mother's side, we have multiple generations that I have. My grandfather at the West Los Angeles National Cemetery and my father at the Riverside National Cemetery. So I know and understand sacrifice, and I appreciate all of you that are a part of this event today. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that this program is being recorded and will later be posted on Representative Ted Lieu's Facebook page. If any of your friends missed this live event, they can watch the recording on Representative Ted Lieu's Facebook page later this week. Feel free to let them know. I would like to introduce all of you to our special guest who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Leading the Pledge of Allegiance today is Mary Campazzi, an Army officer, second lieutenant who served as a nurse in World War II. Mary was stationed in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where the soldiers injured in the European front were sent for medical care. She worked the night shift, taking care of the paralyzed soldiers. But it wasn't all work. At the base, she met and fell in love with her husband, also an Army officer. Mary is a Torrance resident and recently turned 102 years old. Joining her in leading the Pledge of Allegiance are her son, Wayne, who is a Navy veteran and served in the Vietnam era, and her son, Dean. Everyone who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mary, please begin.
Mom just taking a little nap, but we'll start the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Now singing the national anthem is Captain Jolene Dedman. Captain Dedman is an Air Force support officer in the United States Air Force Reserve. She is prior enlisted, having entered the Air Force in 2003. From 2012 to 2013, Jolene toured with the Air Force music group, Tops in Blue. Captain Dedman has performed the national anthem hundreds of times over the past 20 years for a variety of ceremonies and events, including the Arizona Diamondbacks game. When not serving, Jolene works as a contract specialist with the Department of Treasury, procuring information technology products and services. In her spare time, Captain Dedman enjoys spending time with her spouse and 4 daughters, singing in her music group, the Dedman Band. I give you Captain Jolene Dedman.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets ran, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the the night that our flag was still there. Oh, saved us that star-spangled banner yet waved o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated. Thank you, Mary Ann Sons, for leading the Pledge of Allegiance. It's great to see you all happy and healthy. And thank you, Jolene, for gracing us with this beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce the host of today's event. Earlier this week, Congressman Lieu was re-elected for the 5th term to the House of Representatives, representing the 36th Congressional District. He currently serves the House Judiciary Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Representative Lieu previously served as an active duty officer in the United States Air Force between the years 1995 and 1999, where he, where he was stationed in Guam. He went on to become a colonel in the United States Air Force Reserve as a JAG stationed in Los Angeles Air Force Base. He retired just last year. In Congress, Representative Lieu has established himself as a leader on the environment, cybersecurity, and veteran issues. Please, let's all welcome our Congressman Ted Lieu.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate your service to our country, as well as your role of being an MC today. I want to thank everyone who's here on this Veterans Day weekend participating in this event, and want to thank the families of active duty reservists and of our Gold Star families. I have a Gold Star family member here who works on my staff. His name is Ron Reyes. He's a Gold Star Fellow. The Gold Star Fellowship Program is a program that offers members of Gold Star families firsthand experience working in a congressional office. There are currently 20 Gold Star Fellows serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I also want to thank all of the military families who have agreed to speak today and tell their stories at today's event. And I am so thrilled that Mary Campazzi and her sons were able to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And also, I want to thank Captain Dedman for her beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Before we get to hear these wonderful stories, I do want to give all of you an update about laws that have passed that have helped veterans. 3 of them I'm going to talk about. First is a law known as a PACT Act. That is going to help veterans who were exposed to toxic burn pits and other toxins get the compensation that they deserve from the VA. That was a big deal. A lot of veterans, unfortunately, were affected by various toxins during their active duty service, and this will assist them with the just compensation that they deserve. A second law I want to talk about was the National Defense Authorization Act. There was a provision in there that I and many others supported. As of Veterans Day this past Friday, all U.S. veterans and Gold Star family members are eligible for lifetime passes to our nation's beautiful national parks. And then locally, I'm very pleased that one of the first laws I got signed in as a member of Congress was the West LA Leasing Act, and at its full build out, it's going to completely transform the West LA VA. We've already done significant work at the campus, and we've had some buildings be remodeled, and we've had other buildings start to break ground. In a few months, they're going to have a grand opening for some of these buildings. I'm very pleased to see that. And we're going to start housing homeless veterans. And when the entire master plan is completed, the VA campus will house between 1,200 to 1,600 homeless veterans. So with that, let me turn it back to Stephanie, and she will introduce the stories, the family members who will tell the stories that we're going to hear today.
I'm back, but I might be having a bit of audio trouble, so I apologize to all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Congressman Lieu, and let's go ahead and begin with our first speaker, Susan Mitchell Matera, Gold Star mother, and U.S. Navy representative. Our first guest is Susan Mitchell Matera. Susan is a Gold Star daughter of James C. Mitchell, who was killed in action on January 8, 1970 in Vietnam. She has found ways to turn her tragedy into a way to help others, and she was honored by President Obama at the White House. Susan is going to share her story with us now. Go ahead, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am a Gold Star daughter. My dad was Petty Officer First Class James C. Mitchell Jr., U.S. Navy, killed in action on January 8th, 1970, 2 days after his 24th birthday and 2 days before he was coming home. I'm honored and I'm humbled to be here today with all of you. I'd like to say to all the veterans today, and Congressman Lieu, thank you for your service to our great nation, and to our Vietnam veterans, welcome home. My family story is that I was 5 years old and my sister was 3 years old when my father was killed on January 8, 1970. He hopped a helicopter to go translate. He spoke 7 languages, one of them being Vietnamese, when his helicopter was shot down in Vietnam. We spent a lifetime as a Gold Star daughter searching for stories about our dad, stories of who he served with and what he did over there. My mother raised both my sister and I in honor of his legacy to focus in on service for the community. In 2015, as part of a Sons and Daughters in Touch group, a national group of sons and daughters who lost their fathers in Vietnam, I was attending a Father's Day event at the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. During that event, I had an opportunity to travel to Vietnam, and that opportunity was discussed. It was not only about standing in the location where my father died and gave his life in Vietnam, but also about reaching across the table and meeting the other side. The countries over the last 25 to 50 years have come together and start working together, but the people of Vietnam had not. And it was an opportunity for us to do that. I knew I had to stand and walk on the earth and breathe the air that my father had breathed. So I was able to stand there. I was able to be baptized in the water, with the water that my father had gone down with in Vietnam. I was inspired deeply by the Vietnamese people and their openness and the opportunity to help them. So with that opportunity, I became part of an organization called the Two Sides Project, which went to Vietnam. And also we've been able to look at the tragedy that happened in the past and turn it toward hope for the future. And in that hope, we were able to build 7 houses to give to people, poor people in Vietnam, poor families. So far, we've done 3 houses in my father's area, and these houses will be passed down from generation to generation. And so we're honored to do that. And I just like to say, I just returned from a trip late last night, early this morning, from a week in DC, where we celebrated and honored the 40th anniversary of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall and the reading of the names. My sister and I were able to read our dad's name along with other sons and daughters who visited the panels. We were able to visit and actually touch the names on the panels, not only of my dad, but we were able to touch the name of Ron Reyes, Gold Star son and Gold Star fellow Ron Reyes's dad's name. We were honored to do that. What a profound effect of reading and reaching into the past and the present by reaching out and touching a name on the wall and saying their names. For truly, they're not dead as long as they live in the hearts of Americans who say and remember their names. We're just honored to be here today. We want to thank Congressman Lieu and his staff for having us here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing your story. And next, we'd like to hear from Juan Reyes. Our next story comes from Juan
And his mother, Ana Maria Diaz. Ron is currently in the Coast Guard Reserve. He works for Cedar Sinai Hospital. He served on active duty in the Coast Guard from 2008 to 2018. And today he's going to share with us one of his experiences. Juan?
Good afternoon, Stephanie, and good afternoon, guests. Thank you, Congressman Lieu, for having us here today. Again, my name is Petty Officer First Class Juan Reyes, United States Coast Guard Reserves. And here with me, I have my hero and my #1 supporter that I get the privilege to call my mother. As mentioned, her name is Ana Maria Diaz. So today, what we're going to talk about is kind of my story of when I joined the Coast Guard and why I joined the Coast Guard. My mom and I got to the United States back in 1998 when I was 9 years old. This opportunity came as we made a life change for ourselves. We wanted something different. We wanted the American dream. And, you know, it took us 3 months to get to the United States as we came through South America, Central America, Mexico, and then finally to Los Angeles. We've been here since then. During that time, my mom, when I first got here, all she wanted for me was to acclimate, to blend in, to get an education, and to be able to get the best that I can from, you know, her efforts of getting us here. So one thing that I did was I joined the Navy League, which my mom kind of pushed me into. And I joined the Navy League and the Sea Cadets for about 6 years, from the age of 10 until I was 16 and a half. By that time, I was in high school and I had other plans for myself, and I wanted to play sports and get to enjoy my community in high school. Sure enough, 19 years came around. When I was 19 years old, came around, it was time for me to make a decision. I couldn't really afford to go to college, which is why I sought after joining the Coast Guard. During my interaction with the Navy League and the Sea Cadets, I was actually drilling out of Long Beach. And there I got to meet the Coast Guard, and they became a second family to me when we got opportunities to do ride-alongs. We got to train with them. And so I saw myself being part of this community. So at 19 years old, I joined the United States Coast Guard, went to basic training in Cape May, New Jersey. And that's kind of where my journey begins as an adult in the military. The first story that the story I'm gonna tell you today is actually the one that kind of gave me a sense of belonging in the Coast Guard, and that I knew that I had made the right decision, and I joined a family that was gonna take care of me as I ventured in this new career on my own. So this was in 2008. I had just reported to Coast Guard Cutter in Morgenthau out of San Francisco, and just maybe a month and a half after getting there, we're told that we're going to go ahead and deploy to the Pacific Ocean, to South America, to do counter drug missions, which was very exciting. The adrenaline hit, and I was looking forward to this new adventure. But the thing I didn't realize was what was going to happen while I was there. I didn't think about the emotional and the physical demand that this new mission in my life was going to take. So we headed down south. We went to South America. We got to cross the Panama Canal. We got to go to the Caribbean. We were short on resources in the Caribbean, which is why our TACON allowed us to go across to the other side of the Caribbean. And during that time, we did a lot of counter drug missions. And as you know, the Coast Guard is one of the only entities with the authority and the jurisdiction to carry out law enforcement in international waters in high seas. And so we got to do that mission for about 2.5 months out at sea. And the first mission was I get rudely awakened at 2 a.m. and I'm, hey, Juan, you need to get up. We need a translator right now. We know you speak Spanish. Come on and join us. We need you right now. We're shorthanded. Sure enough, there was only 2 other individuals that spoke Spanish, and one of them was on scene chasing one of the small boats in the middle of the night. We also had a helicopter chasing a second small boat that was carrying narcotics, and we had a third one heading straight towards us, not knowing that we were there, because this was the middle of the night with no lighting. And I come up to the deck and I'm dressed up and I'm ready, don't know what to expect, and we begin to board some of these detainees that we came across from the first boat. And I began to, interact with them and ask them questions. Where are you from? What are you doing? Where are you going? Simple questions to kind of get to identify who they are. And during this process, I found out that one of them was actually from my hometown. I had no connection with him, but it felt too close to home in a way. And the nice thing was that I had a family around me of Coast Guardsmen that had done this, had gone through this. And one of them taps me in the shoulder, pulls me to the side and says, hey, it's okay if you need to take a step back, if this hits home too much for you, but we're here for you. We're here to support you and get you through this and kind of get you trained to understand our mission. And so I did. I had to take a step back. I didn't have my name tag. I didn't have anything. And I tried to bury my accent just, for the safety of family members that I do continue to have back home in that same city that that gentleman was from. And so from that point forward, I kind of got to understand that, there was a lot of, communication that was coming to me saying, hey, a lot of stuff comes from Colombia. In a way, I didn't want to believe it. I was still young. I didn't understand what that meant. But now when I encountered it, I realized something, and it hit me, and it really did impact me during that time. And I was able to grow from it from that moment. But the nice thing about being in the Coast Guard now is that I served 10 years, 4 years have been in the reserves for a total of 14 years. I was able to become a US citizen with the Coast Guard. And so I have a lot to thank for in my career. I also got to get my education, which is something I'm grateful for, and some of these things that have been brought forward because, congressmen like Lieu, they fight for these things for us, and they push towards representing us and getting us what we, so what some of these members have, what all of our members have earned in their line of duty. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'll introduce my mom very quickly. If you want to say some words, Mom.
Okay. I feel very, very proud for my son because he's the very best man in the life and the world, because he's very responsible everything. When he child, always he's very independent, and he's always told me, Mom, no worry, I do it. Always he always for me think about, he never been one star. Always he been 10 stars in the front. The mentally he has now is the advance and the progress, and I feel very proud for my son. He's the military of the life. He's a very, very proud for his military. He loves the military, the life of the military. He's the child. I remember, I never forgot when he's coming to the United States, and he's going to send the nephew for the Coast Guard in Long Beach. Always he said, Mom, I want to go to the military. I love it, because when he have a 3 year, I remember in Colombia, I went to the graduation of the uncle in Colombia, because the uncle is military in Colombia. And he 3 year, he lost me around. He go, where's this Juan? And the father, he said, I don't know. He's in the front, everybody, the big chick. And the front, he put the hat, the uncle, and she stand up and like that. At the sign, everybody, oh my God, this is incredible. He went, see, oh my God, look at Jeremy. Juan, he said, oh my God. And when he's coming to the United States, he said, Ma, I want to go to the military. They go, hijo, you don't have 10 years, you're only 9. He said, Ma, please ask for me, it's okay, receive for me. And then the lady said, no, he needs 10 years. They go, okay, what is 1 year? What is every time? Ma, you go, ask. It's okay. They go, no, wait a minute. It's 3 months more. No, Ma, you call, please. You answer. You ask my sister, my cousins. Yes, okay. I'm a little bit nervous, and And when at the moment he's in 10, he not waiting for second minute, he want to go to military. We go, okay. And when he started the military, he's very, very, very advanced alert when he child, you know? Yeah, alert.
Yeah, so
Always
you can see.
he's always the first in the front. Always. He loved the military.
Yeah.
It's the life for my son. Thank you for everybody for support for my son. I appreciate everything. My son is the best man in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan and Anna Maria. And I can hear the passion not only in Juan, but obviously in Anna Maria for her son and her son's duty. So again, thank you so much for your service, both of you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, next up, we have Tim Reed and his wife, Lisa. I'm going to apologize if I mispronounce this, Lisa. Lisa Podolny. Podolny. I got it. I'm so sorry. Lisa Podolny. And I practice too, so I have no excuse. Our next guests are Tim Reed and his wife, Lisa Podolny. The couple met in the Air Force. Tim separated from the Air Force in 2007, although Lisa stayed in the reserves for a few more years. At the time, the couple were stationed at Los Angeles Air Force Base. They're proud parents of 5 kids, and their 5th child was born right here at Torrance Memorial. They lived in the Los Angeles area for several years and then decided to join the Foreign Service. They're joining us today from overseas, it sounds like, right? Because you're going to tell us about your time being stationed in the Ukraine at the embassy in Kiev from 2018 to 2021. They're currently serving in Shanghai, China. And I just want to say good morning and welcome. It must be very early where you're at, I understand. What time is it there?
Yes, it's 6:30 now, so it's a normal hour, but we're just excuse us if we have a little noise in the background. The kids are getting off to school.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. And please tell us your story.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for the introduction, Stephanie, and thank you to Representative Lieu for inviting us here today. As you mentioned, my husband, Tim, and I are both proud Air Force veterans. Tim served for 10 years and I retired after 21 years. I did 14 years on active duty and 7 years as a reservist. 3 of those wonderful years we spent in Los Angeles. And as you mentioned, our 5th child was born at Torrance Hospital, although we do have a 6th child that we added later on. We loved our time in California, and we really hope to return to the South Bay once we're fully retired from federal service. As you mentioned, I currently serve as a diplomat for the US government. We have served all over the world in that capacity. We also served in the Philippines and Hong Kong. I spent a year in Iraq. We've served in China twice, now here in Shanghai, and in Ukraine from 2018 to 2021. And so that's kind of the story that we picked to share with you all today is from our time in Ukraine. And it's especially significant to me because my own family immigrated to the United States from Ukraine. And my last name is Ukrainian, so it's a little hard to pronounce, but I also passed it on to my children so that we can continue that strong tradition. I think we're especially passionate about our time in Ukraine because we left maybe 6 months before the war started, and really no one had any idea what was going to happen. I think if you asked any of our Ukrainian friends, if you asked any of our American friends who served at the embassy there, no one really believed that the Russians would attack again. And so everyone was caught by complete surprise and in shock. My children still think of Ukraine as their home. We enjoy our time in China, but it's quite different here. And because of the COVID restrictions, it's very difficult to get out and to travel anywhere else. And so they worry and are concerned for our friends back in Ukraine with very little way of getting in touch to make sure that people are okay. During our time in Ukraine, we were lucky to serve as part of the US government's election observer team, both for the 2019 presidential elections that saw President Zelensky win with over 70% of the vote, which is pretty impressive, as well as their parliamentary elections, which happened the following year. And so I think that's, we can personally attest to kind of experiencing the really joyous and hopeful spirit of the Ukrainian people as they were going through what was a completely free and fair election. Perhaps the first in their history as an independent country, free of direct Russian influence. It was really inspiring to see that kind of democracy in action. We often take for granted in the United States peaceful elections that are carried out, in a free and fair manner. As we just saw a few days ago, that sort of thing doesn't happen, frankly, in most other countries. And so to see that happen in Ukraine was something really special. And now to see kind of the ridiculous propaganda that Putin has been putting out into the media regarding demilitarization and denazification, it's absolutely ludicrous. And it's especially difficult being in a place like China, which does not support Ukraine, and which really has such control over their internal media that Chinese common people really don't have any concept of what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. And so the support that we see in Congress in particular for Ukraine is something really special. And we appreciate it very much as individuals, both who have family and friends in Ukraine and who've served there for the US government, and to see the kind of support that the US government is putting out there, both financially and politically, is really special. One of the ways in which we want to support Ukraine, because it's difficult when you're so far away, you can't really have an impact. And I think a lot of people in the United States feel that way. They don't know what to do to help. So we've decided to pour our efforts into helping those whom we know personally and in small ways. I think you can always give money to the Red Cross or to other large organizations that are well vetted and are doing great work there. But for us in particular, we felt like by helping some of the smaller organizations that we know personally, that was a way that we can contribute to the war effort that made us feel like we were actually doing something tangible. And so one of the organizations that we're supporting is a stable called Cantavar Stables. It's, in English, it's Centaur Stables. It's where our daughter took horseback riding lessons for 4 years. And horseback riding in Ukraine is actually affordable as compared to the United States. I think her lessons were like $10 US an hour. It's a small family-owned farm on the outskirts of Kyiv, and they really loved our daughter like family. She learned to speak Ukrainian there, enjoy the country's rich culture kind of through her experiences there. In fact, she was just at her boyfriend's house cooking vareniki, which is the Ukrainian version of dumplings, essentially. So she was sharing all of the things that she learned there in the country with the country that she's in now. Just a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, one of their buildings was hit by rocket mortar, and several of the horses that she knew and loved and rode for many years were killed. So the stable itself, although they've been able to survive since the beginning of the war because of the support of people like us and from within the country, they're stopped being able to give lessons. They don't have the number of horses that they had before. They have limited energy resources, so that the country is going through rolling blackouts to try and conserve energy through the winter. So they're really looking for any donations or assistance to focus on the kind of limited resources that they have. And I hope it's all right. We started a GoFundMe for the stable, and we'd really like to put it in the chat if people want to donate to that particular organization. We're very grateful for this opportunity to kind of share our story. We have a lot of stories from our time in the service and our time in California, but our time in Ukraine was very special to us, and we appreciate having this platform to be able to share that with all of you. Thank you.
And thank you. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I really appreciate your stories and to be able to share the sacrifices of the people of Ukraine, both their personal losses of family, but of all the pets and the animals that they love as well. So
Thank you.
thank you both again, and we look forward to seeing says unfortunately that the congressman isn't able to. Thank you again. Again, for our next speaker, though, we move on to Cindy Alatorre. Cindy Alatorre is married and the mother of 2 sons and 1 daughter, and volunteers at Bob Hope USO at LAX. Her eldest son, Sergeant Aaron Rothley, is a United States Marine and currently assigned to the 13th MEU or MEU and serves as a maintenance crew chief and diesel mechanic. I don't see Cindy online. I see her up above though. There she is. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, good
Thank you for
afternoon.
being with us today.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Congressman Lieu, for the invitation. And hello, everyone. Happy Veterans Day to all our veterans. We'd like to say thank you for your service, and especially to your families. Do not forget the families, without their support, our men and women of the U.S. military could not do their job. So we do thank them for it as well. Like Stephanie said, I am married with 2 sons and 1 daughter. My eldest son, Aaron, Sergeant Aaron Nedot, is with the 13th MEU and currently working as a diesel mechanic and maintenance crew chief. My father served, we come from a military family, and my father served in the Army in the 1960s, and both of my grandfathers served in the Army during World War II, one in the South Pacific and one in Europe with the Allied forces. My son Aaron grew up hearing these stories and seeing pictures about them in the history, and it intrigued him very much that he felt a calling to continue that tradition in our family. So when Aaron was 18, he started his great adventure with the Marines 6 months after he graduated from high school. We were aware of the challenges and the potential to be in hostile positions. However, we were very supportive of his decision to serve our country, and we continue to support and rally around him and all of our military personnel. Aaron spent some time in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where he attended school to become a diesel mechanic, and then was stationed there for the duration of his first enlistment. Due to the distance between us, 2,700 miles, he would come home only once or twice a year. But luckily, due to social media, we were able to keep in touch with phone calls, FaceTime, and other social apps. During our conversations, especially during the end of the year, Aaron would mention and talk about his plans to come home to be with us, and stated how he would like to bring home one of his fellow Marines home with us for Christmas. Sometimes they didn't have plans or didn't have as strong of a support system as he did. And of course, we told him, absolutely, bring him home. We'd love to have him. So during their visit, Aaron, along with his brother and sister, would just embrace him and would take him for bikes along the Strand down in Hermosa, Redondo Beach, take him driving around to Santa Monica Pier, showing them the sights and sounds all around LA, and just embracing them and bringing them into our family. It was nice to have him home, and his fellow Marines soon became part of our family. And we would take him with us, whether we were going to sightsee, going to dinner, or going to see family, and included them in our holiday celebrations and would give them a gift so that they would feel included. In the past, I had wanted to be a volunteer at the USO, but was unable to my time constraints. However, 3 years ago, my schedule changed, and I was able to start volunteering there. Being a volunteer at the USO is very, very rewarding in that it allows me to serve others and focus on their needs and make their visit a good one. Sometimes we get people who are just changing stations, some that have family emergencies, some that just need a timeout and a safe place to be, and that's what we get to do at the USO. It's an extension of home, giving them a safe place to be able to be, to rest, to collect their thoughts, and just be in a welcoming environment. While interacting with our while interacting with our military guests at the USO, it made me feel, and still makes me feel, closer to my son Aaron, even though he could be several thousand miles away from me. Each and every one of those military men and women that come through are an extension of my family, and I treat them as one of my own. I got this feeling, and it really came full circle when Aaron shared it with me when he had to go back east. And he arrived at a USO. He was fresh out of boot camp and MCT training. And he told me his story about how the USO in Raleigh, North Carolina embraced him. They met them, brought them in, fed them, and helped them get on their way. So with that experience, it made me want to give back to those men and women who are serving. I volunteer several times a week at the center, welcoming guests. And as I mentioned, I really do enjoy it. And the volunteers are really great. People come from all walks of life to volunteer, and it gives us an opportunity to get to know each other, different perspectives, and just come together for a common mission. My duties at the center can vary from being a host when guests arrive and introducing them to the amenities at the center, as well as working in the canteen, AKA our canteen, our kitchen, and providing food and drinks to our guests. Often we receive troops ranging from 20, we get troop movement ranging from 20 to 125 service members who are traveling through the airport and Los Angeles to their military installations for training or for their permanent station. We have a team of 6 volunteers who meet and greet our guide, our troops several times a week. We generally meet them at the baggage claim. They're coming to Los Angeles and they have to get to their buses to get over to wherever their installation is. So we meet them at the baggage claim, give them a cart, give them some direction, and tell them to sit tight because we're going to take them to the USO and give them some TLC. Once we gather them, we get everybody together and off we go, kind of like a mama duck following them through the airport over to the USO. There's another team that'll be at the USO waiting for them, making food, hot drinks, sodas, sandwiches, so forth, so that they can get a chance to get some nourishment in them. If there is an issue with missing luggage, one of our team members who used to work for the airport stays behind, gets that claim taken care of, and follows through to make sure that that service member gets their bags when they get to their new destination. Most of these military members have been traveling all day long and are hungry. And in some cases have been up 24, 26 hours trying to get at least to this side of the country. Once they get there, they're fed, they're getting food to drink, are able to catch their breath, and they're just grateful for the time down and for the hospitality. Once their transportation arrives, usually some big coach buses, they get another drink or snack and off they go on their way to their new training station. So one story I want to share with you kind of really amplifies what we do and our volunteers, that we go out of our way to take care of your sons and daughters. About 5 months ago, we were handling a large troop movement of about 123 Marines. Now, granted, when these Marines travel, they come with 2 or 3 sea bags, a garment bag, so they're coming just fully loaded, ready to go to their new location. However, on this particular day, there was a mix-up and the buses did not show. By this time, it was 12:30 at night, and our quick troop movement turned into a major Marine sleepover at the USO. As a result, they had to wait for the next day for their bus. The troop movement team spent several hours making sure everyone was fed, had a mat and a blanket to sleep on. Some gave them towels, toiletries to shower if they wanted. The staff member assigned that night spent the night, meaning they were up at least 30, 36 hours to make sure that they were cared for and watched over in a safe environment that whole evening. The crew for the next morning had been advised, and on their own, without anybody asking, decided to come in several hours extra to make sure that breakfast was made, they were fed, and any other needs were met. That next morning, they woke up ready to go, well rested, fed, and ready to jump on the buses to go where they were at. Recently, I was checking the Bob Hope USO at LAC's website. I had to get some information for a project I was working on, and noticed one gracious comment from a Marine parent from one of those Marines from that night. Apparently, their son was in that group of 123 that had spent the night at the USO a few months back, and stated that their son told them that they were well received and had been well taken care of at the USO. It meant a great deal to know for them. It made a great deal for them to know that their son was welcome in a safe environment, and that they were off and didn't have to worry about sleeping in a terminal, not being fed. They knew they were well taken care of. And this is one aspect of being a volunteer, being a Marine parent is all about. The USO gives me the opportunity to take care of an extension of my military family, because that's what it is. All these young men and women serving are an extension of my family, and I look at them as such. The same kindness that was given to my son, I extend to all of our military young men and women serving. And we do this on a daily basis all over the US, Europe, the Middle East. We are located all over the world. So no matter where these young men and women are going, we are there to take care of them. Another program that we have that's very significant is the Family of the Fallen's program, which consists of a team which makes himself available to family of fallen military service members and supports and accompanies them from the time they arrive at LAX through their departure on their appointed flight. I serve on this team, and it is an honor to be there to give dignified transfer to our honorary to these service members that have served us and have passed away while in their military service. We arrange for airport local law officials, TSA, fire department, and other significant agencies to present honor and support and thank this military member and their family for their service and sacrifice. So with that said, I would like to thank Congressman Lieu and his staff for giving us this opportunity to share our stories. To all our veterans, thank you for your service, and to your families, it is not forgotten, nor is it taken for granted. And for all of our military members, thank you for your service. And lastly, for all military families, know that myself, as well as many of the volunteers at the USO, are caring for your family members when they travel throughout the US and throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful story. I just want to reiterate what you said earlier.
We're not able to hear you, Stephanie.
Still not able to hear you, Stephanie. Folks, bear with us for a second as we try to get through these technical difficulties.
1, 2, 3,
a little bit
1, 2,
better.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, a little bit better. I just want to thank, and we'll be going over to a, is this any better?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll hold that here for a second. I just wanted to thank Cindy for sharing her comments, but she reminded us all, let me take a breath. She reminded us all how important families are, as she said early in her comments. Again, we couldn't do what we do in uniform if it wasn't for the men and women staying behind, keeping the home ready for us. So thank you, Cindy, and thank you all to all the families that have been a part of this event today. Our next event, we're going to take a little break here and find out who's in the audience today and take a couple of polls. So the first poll is, if you've served in the armed forces, okay, if you've served in the armed forces, click on the branch where you served. As I mentioned, I served in the Navy, and Representative Lieu served in the Air Force. Would you go ahead and vote now? Oh my goodness, of course we see the Army. But Air Force is catching up. It's like a horse race, isn't it? Here we go, there goes Army. Where's our Navy? Come on, come on. Okay, we have a few more seconds to vote in. This is not good. I think there's a rig. Wait a minute, only Army were invited to participate on this vote, weren't they? Well, I'm gonna throw my hat in for the Navy. My mom and dad were Marines, so we'll throw in 2 for there. I have an uncle in the Merchant Marines. I bet we have somebody in there. All right, I think we're there. I don't know how much longer we want to hold. We have 100% answered. So there we are. We're at 57% are Army today, 29% are Air Force, 14% Coast Guard, and 14% Space Force. Hey, Space Force are represented. So that's wonderful. Let's go to our second poll then. If your sibling served in the armed forces, click on the branch where he or she served. So we have military service too. If your sibling served, there we go. Thank you. There's Navy. There we go, Navy. Anchors away. Come on, Navy. Beat Army. Come on, you can do it. And we have Army. And where are we at? We're at 100% now. So as you can see, 40% of our siblings have served. They served in the Army, and then we have 6% in the Navy and 20% in the Space Force. We have one more poll, I think, right? If you have a parent who served in the armed forces, click on the branch where he or she served. You can vote right now. So if you had a parent that served, let's see where you're at. At 100%, we have 58% Army, 17% Navy, 25% Air Force. Well, great jobs. You're all great voters. Thank you so much for taking that time and voting. Let's see. So that's who we have in the audience today. Let's see who's up to speak next. That's Brandon Cherry Galindo, Lieutenant Colonel, USSF. So Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Galindo is a material leader for the National Security Space Launch Mission Integration Branch. I thought I was going to make it all the way through without messing that up, so I apologize, Brandon. Assured access to space, Space Systems Command, U.S. Air Force Base, California. That's all one sentence. That's all one descriptor, isn't it? I'm looking to Brandon for confirmation. His duties include leading a 60-member team responsible for planning, manifesting, and delivering our nation's most critical space capacities on orbit. He also leads the Mission Manifest Office responsible for identifying, coordinating, integrating, and launching Department of Defense and DoD-sponsored satellites and payloads. Today, he's going to be talking about his brother who served in the Army. So, Brandon, Lieutenant Colonel Galindo, please take it away.
Let's wait one quick second until we can have the poll taken down off the screen.
Thank you, Janet. Let's do that.
And while we're waiting, can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
All right.
It's on the screen.
All polls are down.
All right. So it sounds like we're good to start. So I appreciate the introduction. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Brandon. I go by Cherry Galindo, U.S. Space Force, active duty, currently stationed at Space Systems Command, and that's in El Segundo, California, also known as Los Angeles Air Force Base. I'm also a California native. I graduated from Lakewood High in 2001, and then I graduated from the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs in 2006. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my brother, Charles. My brother, Charles, he was born in June of '91, and while we were stationed at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, New York. He also went to Lakewood, and then he served in the Army at Encino and Los Alamitos before being stationed in Louisiana. One of the things I loved most about talking about my brother or pointing out was that all the way up until the day he was born, we were expecting a girl. He's the fourth out of 4 children, and my mom was planning on naming him Brittany. So he appreciated whenever I brought that up in conversation. He was tall. He was 6'4", just an inch shorter than I am. But I also like pointing out he was handsome. He was funny, charming. He was athletic, like everything you'd want to be as a young man, and everything that any service would want in a soldier. My dad served for 23 years in the Army. And my granddad served in the Army. My mom served as a Navy civilian for a number of years at in Long Beach and at the Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. My brother served as a Navy civilian, and countless uncles have all served. So we have a pretty rich military history, which I think was a large factor in both my service and I know my brother's service. My brother, he was very competitive. He would always compete with me. I was 8 years older than him, but that didn't stop him from always trying to beat me at anything, which was the best motivation that I could have hoped for. So when I went off to the Air Force Academy, it basically guaranteed that he would join the service as well once he finished up school. We aren't your typical Gold Star family because we didn't lose Charles in combat like many other Gold Star families, but you know, I can tell you his loss impacts us every day. Charles was final duty station was at Fort Polk in Louisiana, as I mentioned, when he passed away suddenly from a heart issue at the age of 28. This is back in September of 2019. At the time, I was stationed at the Pentagon, and I remember it being in the evening. I received a phone call that I think any service member family you kind of dread, and hopefully, you don't think about it, but it's kind of always in the back of your mind. From my sister, who saw two servicemen in their service dress, Class A's. They came to the door and they were looking for my mom. And I think immediately everybody kind of knows what that is. But we were hoping that wasn't the case. I was hoping that he just was injured, or maybe he'd gotten in some trouble, even hoping something like that, instead of what proved to be our family's worst nightmare. I don't remember the next few days, but what really stands out is the support we received from the different organizations that were designed to help military families through tragedies like this. The Army and the Air Force, they provided an incredible amount of support, and they were able to coordinate so our family could do something that was pretty unprecedented. I was able to go travel down to Louisiana to bring my brother back to our family. At the time, he was unmarried and he didn't have any children. So there was a bit of discussion, obviously, where we're going to bury Charles. We wanted him close to home, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure that he was in a place where, he could be remembered and taken care of, and given the level of care that our family would want. So it was a tough decision. My parents decided to have him buried in Arlington National Cemetery. I've been able to visit him often, and personally, it gives me a lot of comfort seeing how well our nation cares for the best of us. Ultimately, I think Charles' biggest impact on me, personally, it's impacted my family, each member differently. But, just knowing in the back of my mind that there was always a younger brother who, had so much energy and, positivity in life ahead of him, always pushing me, it really did motivate me. And, it always kind of kept me on my toes to think a step ahead and to stay just a little bit in front of him. But there was no doubt in my mind that I knew that he was going to surpass anything that I was going to be able to accomplish, because he was talented. He had an incredible attitude and work ethic, and people just naturally gravitated towards him. He was a natural leader who also tried hard, and he cared immensely about everyone around him, in addition to us as his family. And it came out in all of his actions. So I think that's one of the things that really sticks with me now that I've been able to get to this level in my career. I want to try to extend that same attitude and that same energy towards the people I come into contact with and my team. Because at the end of the day, the mission is obviously important. The mission has to be accomplished. But I think what people really remember are the people that you're serving with, the people that you're out in some places that you don't want to be in sometimes, and your family doesn't want you in. I spent holidays away from the family in Afghanistan, and I remember the people I was stationed with. And if I can carry on my brother's legacy to, make those around me, just a little bit happier, or, show them that although they may not be near their family, they have a family, and, in me and my family and the team around us. I think he'd be proud of that. So that's something that I try to continue to carry forward. With that said, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my brother, Charles. Thank you for that. And thank you to the other families and military serving, former and present, with us.
Brandon, I just want to thank you for sharing Charles' story with us. We're honored to hear that, and our condolences to you and your family. Pardon me, as we transition over to our next speaker, Our next speaker is Peter Ostrovsky, who will be sharing his story. Peter is the father of Jack Ryan Ostrovsky, who was killed during the U.S. Marine Corps training incident off the Southern California coast on July 30th of 2020. Peter, we're sorry for your loss. Please, would you share your story?
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Lieu and staff, for your kind invitation to participate in this program. I am Peter Ostrovsky. I'm calling from Bend, Oregon. I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer. Our son, Jack, decided to enlist in the Marines when he was 19 years old. Jack was a very patriotic young man who grew up in the post 9/11 environment, surrounded by my fellow law enforcement officers, many of who were Marines. Jack had a thirst to serve his country and follow in the footsteps of his maternal great-grandfather and his maternal grandfather, who had served in the Navy and the Army. We are very proud of Jack. He was the first Ostrovsky to be in the U.S. military. After graduating from boot camp at MCRD San Diego and the School of Infantry at Camp Pendleton, Jack was assigned as a infantry rifleman to the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, also known as the China Marines, which was really meaningful to us because Jack's paternal grandfather, my father, was born in Shanghai, China, and grew up in Tianjin, and remembered seeing the China Marines who were stationed there as he was growing up as a young boy. In July of 2020, Jack was killed with 7 other Marines and Navy corpsmen when their AAV sunk off of San Clemente Island during a pre-deployment combat training exercise with the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. Jack's death really destroyed our family's future plans. We had anticipated that Jack was going to be our family's next leader. We were looking forward to him one day having a family of his own and blessing us with grandchildren. And he was also supposed to one day look after his fraternal twin brother, who's had a lifelong learning disability. As a federal retiree, I was ready to stand on the sidelines with my wife and watch Jack become a man and a future Marine leader. While the unit memorial at Camp Pendleton, honoring the 9 of them, and Jack's community memorial service in his hometown of Bellingham, Washington, came and went, we were bolstered by over 300 letters of condolence and countless gifts of support that we received from all over the country, many from people that we did not even know. We are also fortunate that the Brothers in Arms Foundation, through its very patriotic and generous supporters, flew 50 Marines and sailors from Jack's unit via a private charter jet at no cost to them to Jack's memorial service, along with flying them to memorial services for his fellow Marines who were also fallen from Wisconsin and Texas. That special act of kindness by that foundation really buoyed our spirits and confirmed for us that Jack would not be forgotten. But then I have to tell you that the fog started lifting, and thoughts about what had really happened and how Jack died were constant and almost unbearable. And I have to tell you that I didn't get a full night's sleep for months. And I started to question everything. And everything was really on the table. You know, how could something like this happen to Jack, who was so kind and enthusiastic about being a Marine and enthusiastic about his future with them? You know, was there something that we had done in our lives that made us deserve this? Or were we to blame for encouraging Jack to follow his dream and become a Marine? You know, and then also it made you think about how much more did we need to give our country that we love so much to prove our patriotism, especially after I sacrificed so much family time when I was serving for 31 years in federal law enforcement. I was fortunate to find the post-traumatic winning program, which is run by a retired Marine Major, Mike McNamara from Costa Mesa, California. I learned that you don't ever get over the things that traumatize you, and that it's a normal part of life, and that feeling damaged by trauma is normal. I learned how to coexist with trauma by embracing self-discipline in my life. And I also learned to develop a daily basic routine that supports my mental fitness, and that there is a path from trauma to joy by sharing one's experiences and what I've learned with others. And then the details of the command investigation, the details of the command investigation into the incident were revealed, and it hit us like a ton of bricks. The findings were disappointing and shocking at the same time. The incident was determined to be the result of a confluence of failures by many Marines and sailors up and down the chain of command, and the unacceptable assignment and use of poor condition AAVs that have been obsolete for decades. We were left with thousands of pages of investigative materials and wondering who would be held accountable and how. We also felt that an incident like this could not happen like this again, and that no military family should have to experience what we had. I also knew that I needed to give Jack a voice in the matter, and by connecting with some trusted media and leveraging the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I developed during my federal career, I was able to bring attention to the lack of professionalism, incompetence, and the lack of duty of care that Jack's Marine leaders exhibited by allowing an untrained, poorly prepared, and ill-equipped entire company of Marines and sailors to conduct the training exercise in such an unsafe way. I and another like-minded Gold Star father from Stockton, California, the stepfather of Doc Bobby Nem, testified before the House Armed Services Committee's Subcommittee on Readiness. We were also interviewed by Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes and various regional and national media. We found that our efforts were well received across the spectrum of our fellow Americans, but most importantly, we received positive feedback from young Marines and sailors who greatly appreciated that we were working in their best interests and that we cared about them. Then Kabul happened, and once again, Marines and sailors from Camp Pendleton, along with their family members, were severely impacted. And then my phone rang. It was the Brothers in Arms Foundation asking if I'd assist them with doing force protection and law enforcement agency coordination for a new humanitarian mission where they would be bringing Marines and sailors from Camp Pendleton to the funerals of the Kabul 13. And of course I said yes, because I knew how much comfort it had brought my family when all of the Marines and sailors attended Jack's memorial service. It was simple for me. They had helped us, and now is going to help them help these new Gold Star families. Meanwhile, the foundation was able to fly 2 Gold Star families on a private jet from Riverside County directly into Dover Air Force Base to meet their son's remains, because otherwise those families would have not been able to meet the scheduled arrival if they had traveled via commercial air travel. After a couple of weeks of work, calling, emailing, coordinating law enforcement support for this humanitarian mission, we took a private Boeing 737 full of Marines and sailors to funerals in Laredo, Texas for Lance Corporal Espinoza, Lawrence, Massachusetts for Sergeant Pichardo, St. Louis, Missouri for Lance Corporal Schmidt, Omaha, Nebraska for Corporal Page, and Sacramento, California for Sergeant Gee. Weeks later, the foundation also flew another group of Marines and sailors to funerals at Arlington National Cemetery for Sergeant Hoover and Jackson, Wyoming for Lance Corporal McCollum. During and after the mission, I was able to connect with a few of the Kabul Gold Star families and law enforcement officers that were supporting us, and I was able to share some post-traumatic wisdom with them to help them on their own journeys from a place of trauma to a more joyful place. I know that whatever I do, it will never bring Jack back, but at least I can honor him by working in his name to increase professionalism in the Marine Corps and the Navy in order to save future lives and to assist new Gold Star families with post-traumatic wisdom. Recently, we buried our son at Arlington National Cemetery, and it was done with such great honor and such care. And we were really impressed by their level of professionalism that they provided us. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak about our son, Jack.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing Jack's story and for your continued work to ensure that the lives of other young Marines and sailors aren't put at greater risk. Thank you, sir. Next, I bring to our stage, I'll call it, a pair of Gincolas, Lieutenant Lauren Gincola and Lieutenant Commander Nicholas Gincola. They're both active duty Coast Guard and a married couple. Lauren is an Assistant Chief Enforcement Division for the Coast Guard Enforcement Division. And Nicholas Gincola is a Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander. They are going to share with us their Coast Guard love story. So please welcome Lauren and Nicholas.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to share our story today. It's certainly been an honor listening to everyone else's stories and to be here this afternoon. So we're also joined by our baby daughter, Gabriella. She might be popping in and out of this. But really how this all came to be, at least for me in my career, was when I was a junior in high school. I attended a college fair with my father, and not ever having been someone who was interested in joining the military, we happened to see the Coast Guard Auxiliary, which is our volunteer service, with a little recruiting booth set up. And my dad said, "Why don't you get a brochure for your brother? He will be interested." So I said, okay. And they asked, "Well, why not you?" And they started telling me about all the great opportunities the Coast Guard had, which included flying helicopters, driving boats, and meeting the best friends of your life. And I said, well, I want to meet the best friends of my life. So I thought I would give it a shot. And the Coast Guard Academy has a 1 week long program for high school juniors who are interested potentially in applying to the Coast Guard Academy and seeing what it's like. So I applied for that program. I was accepted, and was a little bit surprised by how intense it was and how rigorous it was. So I didn't leave with the feeling of, oh, I really want to apply to the Coast Guard Academy. But after giving it some thought, I decided to at least apply, and was subsequently accepted, and felt that this was not an opportunity that I should let pass by. So I did end up going to the Coast Guard Academy with some trepidation. And that first summer was really challenging, but my future husband was there the whole time, unbeknownst to me. He's 2 years above me, and he was in the class that was training my class. So they were our cadre and supposed to be, training us and kind of acting as our
drill instructors.
Yeah,
kind of how the academies are set up.
Yes. So I knew who he was. He knew who I was. Fortunately, he was not ever mean to me. But we, being in different classes and not really being allowed to be friends or interact or anything of that nature, we never really crossed paths over the remainder of our time at the academy. Following graduation, I was stationed in Boston on a cutter. My husband was stationed in Virginia, also on a cutter, the same type of ship. It's a 270-foot long ship. And then after that tour, I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, doing search and rescue and pollution response duty. My husband was stationed in Virginia, and he was... I
was at the Maritime Security Response Team, and they did the counterterrorism mission for the Coast Guard.
And then following that tour, we both ended up stationed in New Orleans, Louisiana. My husband was in the enforcement branch at our district office, and I was serving as the aide to the district commander. So we both worked in the same building. It's the federal building in downtown New Orleans. And one day after work, I was walking home, and my husband was walking back from the gym, and we ran into each other on the street, and we were like, oh, I remember you. And it was really nice seeing him again after, 10 or so years. So we started socializing in the same friend group, and then started dating shortly thereafter. And a little over a year later, we were married, and we were married at the Coast Guard Academy in the chapel on campus. And it was a little different because it was during the height of COVID. So it was a really small wedding, but it was a formal military wedding. He wore his yours uniform, and it was just really lovely. And now we have our baby daughter, Gabriella, who you just saw. So I guess really the point or the impetus of this story is that, you know, we both feel really strongly that we can be both dedicated to our career and dedicated to our family. And we love how the Coast Guard's given us the opportunity to be a family, grow our family, and continue to serve our country. So do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just feel really blessed for the opportunity to serve our country in the capacity that we both do. And the service has done a lot to support us along the way. We've moved once together, a lot individually, and we'll probably be moving again this summer coming up. But just very thankful that the Coast Guard supported us. We're able to have the jobs we do. And I would recommend to anyone looking to join a service, the Coast Guard is a great service to join. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity to join y'all today.
And thank you for sharing Gabriella with us too. She is so beautiful. How old is she?
She just turned 9 months.
Oh, yes, we're talking about you, huh? Her first time on, well, I doubt it in these days. I was going to say, is this her first time on Zoom?
It's her first time at an event like this. She's FaceTime.
Superstar.
Thanks a lot.
Lauren and Nicholas, thank you so much for your story, and thank you for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Our next guests are Brandon Gomez and his mother, Patricia Calderon. Brandon is a Navy veteran. Go Navy! Brandon is a Navy veteran that has been able to use his Chapter 31 to go to Santa Monica College for economics. In the Navy, he was an air crewman and an in-flight technician. And here is their story.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so again, I spent 6 years in the Navy. I'm from a small hometown, and my mother here, she primarily raised me as a single mother. And growing up, I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do, what I wanted to get into. I just felt I was the kind of guy that figured things out, and things just work out for me. So after high school, I tried a year at community college. I didn't take it very seriously. And my mom, before I even did that, was like, you should really consider the military. You should really consider the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, Marines. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, that's just whatever. That's just this and that. That's the easy way, or whatever the case is. I had all these terrible misconceptions about it. And well, after I flamed out a year of community college, she's like, she's a police officer herself. So she knows all about discipline and everything that comes along with it. And I said, you know what? I think you're right. I have no cards to play here. You're absolutely right. I definitely should talk to a recruiter. So after speaking to a variety of the branches, I decided the Navy would get my hat in the ring, just because they sold me on being able to travel the world, see the world. You'll always be near a big body of water. And I'm a Florida boy, so that was really cool to me. And so I joined the Navy. I had no idea what job I wanted. I just wanted to leave my small hometown. And I had the opportunity to sign an aircrew contract. And it was 6 years, because the training is extensive and there's 2 years of it. And so I said, okay, don't know what an aircrewman is, but let's do it. So go off to boot camp, do training in Pensacola, went through this rigorous aircrew candidate school. Lots of physical stuff, lots of 10-mile runs, tons of swimming and survival egress training. And it was intense. And ultimately I passed, thankfully. And I was like, okay, where am I going to go? So I had gotten orders to Jacksonville, Florida, and I was really excited. And I was like, yeah, big body of water, and I get to be back home, and I'm financially independent, all the cool stuff that you get excited about when you're 18, 19 years old. And then the day before I'm supposed to leave, they said, hey, priority orders came up. They're going to go to Tinker Air Force Base. And I'm like, what the heck? It's in Oklahoma. It's in Oklahoma City. No big body of water, not going back home. I'm not excited about it. But ultimately, I met an amazing group of people. It was great to leave Florida. I learned an amazing job. I was an in-flight technician on a Boeing 747 aircraft. And the job dealt with nuclear warfare defense, lots of exercises, got plenty of flight hours, got to rock a pretty cool pickle suit to work every day, the green flight suits. And got to go to SEER school, survival evasion school. It was a great time. But about 3 years in, I decided I wanted something else out of my military career. I wanted to scratch the itch of just more hands-on. So I decided to leave the program after 3 years, and I became a part of the Seabees in the Navy, which, if you don't know about the Seabees, they're military construction. The motto is we build and we fight, because you also get trained how to work combat weapons, because you'll be overseas. In war times, you're going to be in combat zones. In Iraq, the Seabees were big, building up different huts and whatnot for Marine forces, Army forces, the teams such as. But right now, thankfully, we're in peacetime. So a lot of the Seabees jobs is humanitarian missions. So I ultimately became a steel worker, which is essentially a combat welder. So I learned a sweet vocation, sent to Gulfport, Mississippi. And I got sent to really cool places. I got sent to Spain, and I got sent to Africa and Djibouti, Africa. And we completed a nursery clinic for the locals over in Djibouti, Africa. I was also moved around quite a bit while in Africa. I got to work with SEAL Team 4 in Somalia and other locations. And it was an awesome time. And I tell you all this because ultimately my mom was right. You know, it was quite literally the best decision I could have made. And after 6 years, I was really excited. I was excited to start the next chapter of my life, use the GI Bill to go to school. And in the military, they tell you where to live, essentially. If you're fortunate, you get a dream sheet and you can go wherever you want. But I was in Oklahoma City, I was in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I was ready to tackle life. And January 2020, I was excited when I got out the military. And 2 short months later, the entire world was on lockdown. And I was stuck at home with my mom in my small hometown that I couldn't wait to get away from. So I'm home for several months, and my poor mom is dealing with a frustrated son who's 25 at this point and is just so ready to leave and conquer the world and do everything. And I felt so shackled, and it was such a frustrating time in my life, and I'm sure everybody's lives at that point. But eventually, October of 2020, I decided enough was enough, and I packed my car and I moved out to Los Angeles, California, because I think, especially on the East Coast, everybody has a little West Coast wanderlust. So moved out to Los Angeles, California with one of my best friends from my hometown who is located here already. And I'm currently enrolled at Santa Monica College. And honestly, I love the GI Bill. It has allowed me to be primarily a student without the distractions of having another job, as it allows me to just focus on school as my bills are taken care of. I'm currently maintaining a 4.0 GPA. So some of those bad habits that plagued me my first go around are no longer with me, thankfully. And it's a great time, currently majoring in economics. And yeah, so if my mom wants to say anything, she can.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to have us here. Thank you, Congressman. When Brian called me and asked me to join him, I just felt so privileged that my son would want his mom to do this with him. Thank you, baby. Like Brian said, I work in law enforcement for 19 years, which was most of his life. And I pushed him to go to military because, like you said, mainly I raised him as a single mom. And I could teach him how to do laundry. I taught him manners. I taught him how to tie his tie. But I felt that I couldn't teach him enough about being a man that, you know, men could teach. So he did go to college, and he did really great for a while. He went and he enjoyed his theatrical classes, but he didn't enjoy so much his academic classes. And but the one thing was that Brian's always been a good kid, and he would always tell me where he was and what he was doing, and I was grateful for that. Even when he was in college, he's like, "Mom, we're going to go to the movie theater. Mom, we're back at the dorm." he didn't do so well second semester, came home. I'm like, okay, son, you got to do something. So like you said, he went to talk to the different branches, and he liked the Navy. And I'm just so grateful for the military. And he called me from boot camp. I remember he told me, Mom, you were so right. And I was so proud of him, and I still am so proud of him and the man that he's grown to be. And I know that, excuse me, I know that God has special plans for him. And I'm so grateful for all of my children. I also have a son who's in the Navy. He is an E5 at Meridian Naval Base. He does air traffic control. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity that they've had. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pat. You have every reason to be proud of Brandon. He said it, you said it, you were right. Mom was right. So that's the best lesson to learn, first and foremost. So thank you so much for allowing the Navy to have the honor to have your sons. And again, to Brandon, thank you for your service. So ladies and gentlemen, I think so today, military families from all branches of the armed forces have had a chance to address their community directly and without intermediaries. As guests and speakers, you took part in a community ceremony that returns the experience of service to our country, to our entire community, rather than just leaving it to the people who fought and served and their families. Not only is this military family appreciation event tremendously beneficial to their families and to the families, but we hope that it will help bring communities and the entire country together as well. I think those are important words, and I'm sorry if I stepped on them a bit, but I just want to thank Congressman Lieu for putting this together and his staff. So if I may, I'd like to give it back to Representative Lieu for some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and for all the family members that we heard from, and for all of you for participating. I hope you've been inspired and moved by these stories, and that you have an understanding and appreciation for the military families who support our active duty reservists and veterans. I also like to express my sincere appreciation for the folks that led the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to thank Mary Campazzi, a World War II veteran and longtime resident of Torrance, and her sons for their role today in leading the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as to Captain Jolene Dedman, U.S. Air Force military singer, for her beautiful rendition of the national anthem. And then for everyone who presented today, I'm presenting a congressional certificate of recognition. They have already received it. I'm going to read you what it says. It says that in recognition of sharing your story at the Conversations with Military Veterans and Gold Star Families event, and with sincere appreciation for the sacrifices you made in support of family members who serve our country. So thank you again for sharing your beautiful stories. And also I'd like to thank my staff for putting this event on. Ron Reyes, our Gold Star Fellow, for his many contributions to this event. Janet Turner, who organized this event. Our interns, Karen, Stephanie, and Gabe, and my district director, Nico. So thank you again, Stephanie Stone, for being a wonderful MC today. And I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Congressman Lieu. Thank you for allowing me to help facilitate this lovely military family appreciation event. Before we close, we have the results of the polls, which I spoke to earlier. So the polls that talked about the military branches, I believe they're going to be in the chat.
They will not be in the chat, but
right.
we shared them already. Thank you.
We did. Okay, I just want to thank everyone who tuned in today, turned up and tuned in. This program has been recorded and also downloaded on Representative Ted Lieu's Facebook page. If any of your friends missed the live stream, they can watch the recording later this week on Representative Ted Lieu's Facebook page. Feel free to let them know, but don't hit the exit button just yet. Now that you've met all our speakers today, we're going to leave you with a montage of pictures showing them and their military families. So please have a great day and enjoy the pictures. Thank you all.